Hello and welcome to Breakout Blueprints Personal Success Toolkit, and this today is part 3. I'm your host Stuart Harris, and Personal Success Toolkit is really something I'm very passionate about, and we've been running the series now for 2 weeks, and the first couple of weeks we talked about setting up your mission statement, which is really just your own little story, and I don't mean to diminish that, but it's a story that you want to set up, and it tells about what you want to achieve with your life. So it's something that's very simple and easy to achieve. And then the second part that we talked about was meditation, and that's simply finding those little spots in your life where or in your day where you can just quieten down, collect your thoughts, and then imprint some positive things for you to follow through with. That just makes your day that much better, and in fact really adds a dimension to what you're doing as you progress through any part of your life, really. Today is all about visualization, and we're going to come to that soon. And next week we're talking about taking action, which is of course the little steps that get the ball rolling for you. You know, that little block that we have that we just can't get over, where we want to get going, and how do we make that happen? So we're going to give you some real fine tips in that session. I'd like to welcome along my panel today. I'm very, very excited and deeply appreciative of the fact that these lovely ladies can join me. They really add something special to these sessions. And first and foremost, I'd like to welcome along Cindy London from London Life Coaching. Welcome, Cindy.
Hi, thank you, Stuart, for inviting me again.
You're very welcome, and thanks for coming. And also Virginia Parsons from lifeenhancement.com. Welcome, Virginia.
I'm happy to be here, Stuart. I am here from beautiful Lake Tahoe on vacation, so glad I could make it.
Yeah, and I'm glad too, because we were a little bit nervous about whether we'd get the feed, and look, here we are, Lake Tahoe, coming in across the globe on the internet. So whereabouts are you from, Cindy? Just let our audience know.
I'm from Columbia, Maryland, on the East Coast.
So on the East Coast of the United States. And
of the United States, right.
Yeah, the United States, and I'm coming to you from the Gold Coast in Australia, which is on the east coast of Australia, a very sunny part of the world. So the exciting bit is that you know, we can do this, and there's 3 different parts of the globe that are coming together on this technology. So we'll kick off the session today, and it's about visualization, but it's how to visualize your entire world so that you can make it happen too. And ladies, I just want to bring in a quote right now that Andrew Carnegie made to Napoleon Hill, which goes like this: any idea that is held in the mind, that is emphasized and is either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate physical form available. And it goes on to say, whatever you have to attract for the manifestation of your idea, you will attract. And I think this is a very, very powerful quote. And the reason why I brought it in is because with visualization, whilst we really have an intent to create something positive, something that's strong and developmental for ourselves, we occasionally get those little things that pop up that we need to deal with that aren't quite aligned with where we want to go. They could be negative, they could be the wrong perception, it could be something that doesn't quite match up. Ladies, can I get you to perhaps talk about the quote and how you feel this is important to our viewers, and maybe Virginia, if I kick off with you on that one.
Well, Stuart, it's a terrific quote, and it really does suggest that, you know, our mind attracts what we focus on, and the energy that's projected through our mind and our thoughts draws to us something equal and actually expands upon it. In other words, the more you give it attention, the more energy you give it, the more powerful it becomes. And of course, what we want to do is just the opposite, is to disarm our fears and end up giving our...
Whoops, we've lost Virginia temporarily, so we'll come back to you, Virginia, in a second. Cindy, did you want to add a little bit to that as well?
I think it's an incredible quote, and it is, whatever you focus on does expand. So if you're focusing on the negatives, that is all your mind is going to be focused on, and it does rob you of the opportunity to experience more positive things in your life. I think Virginia's back.
We lost you temporarily.
You didn't hear what I said. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We lost you.
It's the mountains. What can I say?
The fresh air.
Yeah. Did you want me to repeat it?
If you're happy to, we'd love to hear.
No, I was just basically saying that it's something that when you think about cloaking it, because you have taken that on. You've taken that identity on, that fear on, and instead we're looking for focusing our energy on what we want that's positive.
Absolutely, and so when we deal with some of these negative things, I just want to touch on this briefly, because to resolve the negative perceptions is really important, to get them out of the way quickly. One of the processes that we can use to deal with that is one that Natalie Ledwell uses a lot, where she creates the image or the perception, which is usually there in the first place anyway, of what you don't want. And this could be an image of you or an image of something. And I'm talking about this very loosely at the moment, but there is an entire process behind this. If we take that image and we view it in our mind and we just minimize it to a little speck, and one of the variations of that I like to help my clients with is, we're all using computers, and of course Windows is that wonderful thing where you can minimize it to nothing, or you can explode it up to the screen. So if we get that image and we imagine that it's in our computer, and we just click that minimization button, and it just zips away to nothing and disappears into the bottom of the screen, and then it's no longer. And because we use a computer image, it's very easy for us to manifest that process in our minds quickly. Cindy, perhaps do you have a variation on that as well, and do you want to add some content to minimization of negative perceptions?
Well, I have a couple things I'd like to say, but I'm not sure it's the timing is correct. But to minimize, what I do with people is I use, if they're having difficulty being stuck, I use either EFT or another process, so that they can get that off of their plate, essentially, so that is not an issue. And I would like to talk about the MIT research, but I don't know if this is the appropriate time in regards to resonance. But
please do, because I think
okay.
it all helps, and this is the value of having this hangout, is having the different methodologies that can be applied that may or may not suit individuals.
Okay. MIT did a study, and this is looking at quantum physics actually, and what they did is they had two identical tuning forks, and they had them on they were kind of stuck on this hollow rectangular wooden structure, and they would strike the one tuning fork, and the second tuning fork would then start to also vibrate and create sound, meaning that the two identical frequencies were in resonance with one another, attracted one another, and created the resonance or the sound coming from the second tuning fork. When there was they then put a weight on the second tuning fork, so that the tuning fork was not identical to the first tuning fork. struck the first tuning fork, and the second tuning fork did not create sound. So that went into how you have two identical frequencies that line up with each other. This is called resonance. This is what we call resonance. So that when we are emitting this resonance, this field of caring, or this positive or negative, that's what is going to come back to us, because that's what's going to resonate with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's an apt example of what Andrew Carnegie was perhaps talking about. Is when we create something and we're in tune, and that resonance is occurring, that will start to create the movement of energy and particles, and the changes that will start to shift to create what we're in resonance with. Did you want to add more to that, Cindy?
No, it just happens in your life. If you look at your life, and you can look back and you can think of times when things were really horrible and you were dwelling on how horrible things were, and things just continue to be horrible. It's pretty tough to shift out of that unless you start to shift how you're thinking and create something different in your life. It's kind of hard for people to get that, but that is in fact true. Can you add anything to that, Stuart or Virginia?
Yeah, I'll go to Virginia, because I think we can all relate to what you've just talked about, Cindy. And Virginia, do you want to add something there?
Well, it's the same idea. I mean, it's just a matter of what you focus on energetically. That's what you're going to draw to you. It's the same idea. I use it a little bit differently from the standpoint of I help people, if it's just a minor negativity, and by that I mean, it's kind of a pest in the background, getting in the way or interfering with focusing on what they want, I'll give them a couple of simple techniques. One that's kind of easy is to just say, well, why don't you let that part of yourself that keeps interfering, keeps sabotaging what you want, why don't you give that permission to go on vacation? And, let it pack its bags. This is a visualization process. And then I just help them imagine, let's get that part of you looking smaller and smaller, tinier and tinier, and how about let's put it into a balloon. Now, a lot of the work I do is in a hypnotic trance state and helping them just focus even more intensely, which is really all hypnosis is a deep focus on an idea. And put it into that balloon and imagine it's filled with helium and let it just float out into the universe, take its vacation, while you focus on what you really want, while you focus on your intentions, your desires, and your goals, and just let it go. And if it decides it wants to drift back down, just imagine a wind comes along and blows it off again. In other words, just not giving it too much focus. So that works really well. Now, with people who have really deep-seated, subconsciously limiting beliefs that are really getting in the way and are stumbling and are stubborn, then I will use techniques such as regression, helping them go back to what we call the initial sensitizing experience, and then do some very basic NLP reframing techniques to take the energy away from that experience.
And I do something similar, if I may, Stuart.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
And that is, I use the empowered self speaking to the operating self, which I talked about the last time. The empowered self is the stronger self. The more creative self, the more positive self, speaking to that part of us that is stuck, and having a conversation, and it draws out the underlying issues that are happening, and does empower the person to move into a more empowered state. And if they're overly stuck, I will use EFT with people. But I think it's the mind really does create the whole show, and you can busy yourself with doing a lot of stuff, but the underlying thing that's running the show is really your mind. So getting that kind of in the right perspective, in the right position, really helps you move things along much more rapidly rather than just going and doing and doing.
And we are talking to Cindy London and Virginia Parsons in the third part of Personal Success Toolkit. And the topic we've just been covering is how to remove the negative images, negative perceptions, so that we can then move forward and start putting in the correct images and the correct visualizations. So we're going to come to that in just a second. But just to like to welcome along our viewers at the moment, and it's great to have you along here today. If you're happy to, you're welcome to pop in any comment you like below the video, and even any questions that you might have. If you have any questions as we go along, by all means pop them in there. And if you're feeling up to it, please by all means pop in a comment to tell us where you're coming in from, so that we know where you are. We've got Cindy from the east side of the United States, and we've got Virginia from the west side of the United States, and of course myself from Australia. So look, moving along, one of the methods that I like with Laura Silver from silver.com is the process by which she creates a couple of frames. One has well, they both have different colors essentially, but I think she uses a blue frame and a white frame, and it's on a plane that's up above eye level, and she puts the negative or wrong image in the blue frame and moves that across to the left, and then she brings the white frame in with the image that she wants to have, the image of the element that she wants to manifest, and has that come in on that plane right in front, up above, and she has a full process that goes through all of that. I've just covered it very lightly. I just want to ask Virginia perhaps how people should go about building in some of the life images that they want to resonate with, and what techniques do you recommend in that process?
Well, Stuart, one of the techniques that I use to help empower is to help the person discover or remind themselves of a time when they felt really powerful. So this could be going back in time in another minor regression where they can recall or remind themselves of something they've done that they're really proud of, that makes them feel good inside, that elevates their energy. So it's a positive reinforcement of something they've already accomplished and can feel good about. And again, we want to build on that. Energetically, we want to build on that feeling of accomplishment. So that's a very simple technique that then I add an anchor to. And an anchor is some type of a physical response. It could be something as simple as, again, bringing the thumb to the index finger. It could be something like a V for victory. I had one gal that anchored this with herself by using it, like she was pretending she had a machine gun, and she used that anchor to empower herself that nobody was going to get in her way, and she used a code word called Rambo power. And she took the code word Rambo power and this anchor of, no one's going to get in the way of my accomplishing my goal. So these are some very simple techniques that do work. And then every time she uses that, this again, it's like, you know, out of my way, I'm getting my job done, and you're not getting in the way.
That's cool. I like that one. I think I'll steal that one for myself. Cindy, you got some techniques as well that you'd like to add there?
Actually, what I do is very similar to what Virginia just talked about, and I use the words empowered self and have them go back to when they felt very empowered and successful and confident, and then talk about the beliefs that that person, that part of themselves had, and then go a bit further and have them either find an avatar or make a collage that is reflective, or a drawing that is reflective of this aspect of their personality, and really to drive it home. You name the personality, then you can have a picture of that personality, right there in your bedroom, or right there on your the mirror in your bathroom, or whatever, to emphasize over and over again that this is really who you are. This is your true self, and to empower that aspect of yourself, rather than that negative part that is talking, the little guy that says you can't do it, you can't do it. It's this powerful, very strong part of yourself, and it takes a lot of practice to create this habit of coming back into this empowerment, this state of empowerment. And that's essentially what I do, and it is fun. People do feel very good about it, and they feel very strong when they do that.
Yes, and one of the problems perhaps with visualization is setting up the time to make this happen. And although I've referred to the fact that we do this on a daily basis anyway, our mind wanders and we're creating these images, and it's a little bit uncontrolled, and all we're really doing is applying some structure to it. But if we want to really create the right growth path for ourselves to get us going in the right direction, we have to spend the time on a daily basis where we actually commit to creating those images and working with them. And we're going to just develop this a little bit more in the conversation. And one of the processes that I like to use is bringing yourself into the image. And I work with this a lot, especially with my clients, is whilst we have images, it's always out there somewhere. It's up in the ethos, or whatever you want to call it. But getting ourselves inside the image changes it up a lot, and all of a sudden it creates a different dimension to the image. And what I get them to do is to tag that process in, or accompany it into the end of their meditation process. Now, ladies, I know you've got different thoughts about this, so perhaps if you could add something here and tell our viewers some of the ways that they can really make sure that they incorporate the visualization process into their daily life, because sometimes when we get so busy, it's difficult to do. What's your thoughts there, Virginia, please?
Well, I coach them to use all five senses. And the more they practice using all five senses, and by that I mean when you're visualizing a goal, you want to make sure that you're thinking about it from the standpoint of how does it look to you? What are you seeing when you accomplish that goal? That's one sense, obviously. What are you feeling kinesthetically? That's very important, because you have to bring in not only your feelings internally, but externally. What's going on around you? What does that feel like? You want to bring in the auditory. So, what are you hearing? Maybe if I'm working with someone who wants to do a marathon, as an example, I want them to work into what they're hearing when someone goes across the finish line. What they're hearing in their own mind. Bringing all these different senses in. If it's something that has to do with, like weight control, I would certainly want to bring in the taste and the smell as part of imagining them accomplishing their goals. So the more you can bring in all five senses, the more powerful the visualization becomes. Now, as far as making it efficient to do this, at first this takes practice for people. People have different ways of responding to the senses. So some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic, and some people are more visual. So they're going to find the visual, for instance, if they're visual, very easy, but maybe the auditory is not so easy. So they have to practice that a little bit more. But the idea is, in time, they should be able to do this very quickly. And when you add what I mentioned a few minutes ago, your code words and your anchor, the anchor in that gal's case, she chose, the machine gun, you know, that was her choice. And when you choose those things, then you end up with something that's more powerful. And then you can very quickly go through the 5 senses, add your anchor and your code word, and do the visualization in a few minutes. It doesn't have to take long, even though this process sounds a little bit elaborate. But it's much more powerful, internalized, when you add all 5 senses to your visualization.
And I agree. You know, incorporating the senses is a really powerful component to this. So the minute you start to do this, you find this whole exercise scales up in a magic way, really. And I don't use that term loosely. It's magic. It is in fact quite a enlightening experience, I guess is probably the word to use. What's your thoughts, Cindy?
Oh, I have several. First of all, one of the things that I do is I will record a visualization for the person so that they will listen to it, hopefully every day. And it is geared for whatever it is that they want in their life at that time. And the recording can be very brief. So and again, it's up to the person to actually listen to it. Programming in all the different senses is extremely important, because what we're doing is we are retraining your mind. We're retraining your mind, or reprogramming your mind to feel as if this is what's happening now. And the brain really doesn't know that it's not happening now, to be honest. And so we just reprogram your mind that, you know, this is what's happening, and that your life is like this right now. It's not that it will be like this. It's not in the future, which I think Virginia talked about. It is happening right now, and that shifts everything in your mind, in your conscious mind, in your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is really the part that runs the show. So that's what we're trying to do, is to change the thought process and your beliefs, and then that shifts everything. But it does take practice and repetition.
And it's a great point that you make too, Cindy, is that you know, you're bringing this into focus now, and you're making this mind shift now, because one of the things that we tend to do as human beings is we tend to operate as if we're outside of our body. We tend to operate as if it's over here and time has no bearing on anything, whereas in reality it does. And you know, we have to get this in focus now, and one of the best ways of really creating the go forward and the momentum and the step up for now is by using visualization. And what I want to introduce, perhaps, as we go further into this, is a step up in terms of how we make visualization more powerful. So one of the things that I've already talked about is stepping into your image, but one thing that I find really kicks in and changes things up again is changing the view of the image from you looking in it but at it, and instead changing that to you being in it and looking at it from your own eyes. So all of a sudden your image is in view of you as you're in there, while you're standing there, or whatever physical activity you're doing in there. All of a sudden, if you create that image, it really changes that whole dimension, and it creates an internalization process around that image. And I don't know how you feel about that, Cindy, but do you want to add anything to that concept?
Well, gee, Stuart, I always have people do that anyway.
Yeah.
I start out there. It's, you
Okay.
know, imagine that you are sitting on the bike and you are, you know, going down the street, and feel the bike beneath you, and feel your feet on the pedals, and feel the road bumping, and feel the wind on your face and blowing your hair, and you know, I already do that part. I don't think it's useful to do it any other way. So that's what
Sure.
I always do.
Yeah, and I know, Virginia, you've already talked about the senses and how important they are and connecting with them. And when we're in the image, because I find a lot of people aren't in their image. They are looking at it from wherever they're looking at it from, and everybody's got a different way of doing this, which is really interesting in itself. But getting inside the image and then looking at the image through your own eyes, and then having your senses applied to that process, which you've already talked about, really makes a different dimension. Do you have anything that you want to contribute there too, Virginia?
Well, I really wanted to share research that was done many years ago with elite athletes. And it just bears repeating. It has to do with getting inside the image. Now, in this particular study, they were starting with elite athletes, so they already had their bodies conditioned. I want to make that clear. But what they did was take three groups of people, or three groups of elite athletes, I should say, and the first group spent several months practicing only 25% on doing the visualization of their event and winning it, or doing, exceedingly well with it, and 75% practicing it physically. The second group, they spent 50% on the mental visualization, 50% of their time practicing. What was really interesting is that the third group only spent 25% of its time practicing the physical and 75% of its time visualizing their bodies going through the performance. And by far and away, the group that visualized 75% of the time and only practiced 25% of the time far exceeded the results at the Olympics in getting more medals. So very interesting study that I think just brings home, when you are working in your mind inside your body using all five senses, it's a very powerful practice.
Totally agree. And one of the processes that I next incorporate into that is having everything start to move. We've talked about being in the image. We're talking about looking at it from our own eyes and being present in that image. We're talking now about the senses, but actually having everything begin to move and be in action, like as if you're in a movie. This step up again is really extremely powerful. It's one that makes everything come to life, makes it real. And when you repeat this process on a daily basis, then it starts to become imprinted on your subconscious. And this is the key to visualization, because, and this is a different science altogether, but your subconscious believes anything. It has no reference point. So whatever you feed your subconscious, even if it's not what you're seeing with your eyes, becomes embedded and totally trusted. It's what's real. So the more that you repeat this process, particularly about something that you want in your life, or the way you want your life to be, starts to be created. It all starts to happen, and it comes back to the process that Cindy was talking about, the resonance with the two forks. You start the resonant, and the vibrations of that start to draw these things together. Cindy, did you want to add anything there at all?
I love this conversation, and I hope people really get it, because the whole idea of what it is you put out is what you get back. You do resonate with what you attract. I mean, you attract things to you as a result of your thought process. And I guess it's hard for people to get, but maybe with some of these experiments that Virginia and I have discussed, that it becomes a little more real to you, and that you're willing to accept that and try some of these things, because it does make a big difference. And I'm very excited that we're sharing this with people.
Yeah, and I am too. I'm really passionate about this, and there is a little methods by which you can test this out. You don't have to do it on anything big. You can just try something really small. It might be getting a clothing garment or something like that. And you visualize that process, and you really do this intently on a daily basis, and watch what happens. I assure you that visualization is extremely powerful, and things manifest through the power of visualization. And that's probably the key point about visualization, isn't it, Virginia, is actually creating the world we want, creating the things that we need to achieve or desire in our lives. And is there a process more powerful than this?
Well, that's really the essence of it. I'll add a couple things to this, and that is I'd like to remind people that you've got to believe this. You know, you've got to believe what you believe you want. So, you know, really emphasizing the belief that not only I can do this, but I believe I can do it, and then putting it into perspective of gratitude as well. First of all, the feeling of belief that I can do it, that I'm worth doing it, I'm worthy of accomplishing this, and then a sense of gratitude in your mind that you've already accomplished it, and giving, you know, gratitude for having accomplished it. These are all things that just reinforce the energy of being in that moment, and we're going back to what I talked about the first time, and that is elevating your energy. You're going to attract things to you much faster when your energy is elevated rather than being suppressed. And there's one other little thing I'd like to point out, and it's not little actually, it's big. When I'm working with people, we always develop affirmative statements, or maybe what people have heard to be declarations of intent. And these statements, it's very important how they're structured. So in whatever you're wanting to accomplish, make sure they're structured with 3 key components. Number 1 is make sure that any statement or declaration you make is put in present, as though it's already accomplished, not future, but it's already accomplished now. The second thing is to make sure that the declaration is in present tense. Now, by that I mean that it's you know, again, not futuristic. I think I just repeated myself. The second thing is to make sure that you use action verbs. Now, people don't realize that a passive verb just doesn't have the same energy connected with it. It has to do with visualization. You know, like saying something like, I am feeling rather than I feel is a good example. I am walking is a passive verb. I walk or I run. These are active verbs. So when you're writing a declaration, make sure the verbs are active, because now the mind is engaged in the activity. It's not so passive. And then the last one I've already referenced again is with feeling. The statements that you make have to evoke powerful, uplifting feelings in you. And now we're back to the belief. I believe this, I feel it, and therefore I am it. I hope that helps.
And may I put one more thing in here? I agree 100%, Virginia. That is totally correct. The feeling part is so important. To just go through it almost in a robotic sense is not going to work. The other thing, too, is that I wanted to add the idea behind all these positive thought processes, that you are activating the positive pathway in your brain. There's a positive pathway, there's a negative pathway. The negative pathway is going to go right up to the amygdala, the seat of fear and negativity, and then go up to only one side of the prefrontal cortex, whereas the positive pathway does not go through the amygdala and goes right up to both sides of the prefrontal cortex. And what that does is it strengthens that pathway. They have shown that by scientific imaging studies, that the pathway that is used more is stronger and is larger. So, folks, what you do believe, what you do think is just creating that stronger pathway. So why not make the positive pathway the stronger pathway? The positive affirmations are actually creating a stronger pathway, and it helps you to think in a more creative manner, in a more balanced manner, so that you can think outside the box. It's all science. This is not woo-woo stuff. This is science, scientifically based. The other thing that I wanted to add, aside from the positive pathway discussion that I just threw in there, is that I have made collages myself, vision collages, what it is I want, and have put them up, and you know something, that happens. They do come true. You put it up, and it's someplace where you're looking at it every day, often, frequently, and I just was like, you know what, my kitchen now does look like that, and you know what, I am doing more photography, and you know what, I have a lot of flowers now, whereas before I didn't, and you know what, I am paying attention to the vegetables I'm eating, whereas before I wasn't paying very much attention, and I wasn't eating very many vegetables. And you know what else? I went on a vacation, and it looked just like that. I can't believe it. The trees look just like that. So it just, you know, it happens. It manifests. Put the collage together, put it up, look at it, and you'll see after a while that if with the right mindset and with positive thinking and doing all these things that the three of us have been talking about, things start to shift in your life.
Thanks, Cindy. And look, we've been having some incredible content here from both Cindy and Virginia, and we're going to have to wind up shortly, and I'll come back to both of you for final thoughts. But look, we're talking about a very important process here, which is actually really simple to do. And if you listen along through this hangout, or even listening to the replay, you'll see that what we're talking about is something fundamentally basic. It's not unimportant. What I'm saying is it's something easy, and in fact we really actually do it. So all we're doing is incorporating some structure to what we're doing on a daily basis. And the whole series, we've been talking about this. This is really a success toolkit for you. In the beginning, we talked about setting up a mission statement and creating the things that we want in our life. And as I said at the beginning, then we talked about you know, just creating those little moments in our day where we collect our thoughts. And now we're adding in the visualization component, so we can add these things together. And when you start doing these little things, they're not big things, and just taking that little bit of time to make these things happen, you'll start to see changes in your life that you never dreamed about. They have such a big impact. And we're coming to the end now, so perhaps Virginia, can I invite you to give your final thoughts today?
Yeah, to sum it all up, Stuart, I would say visualize your life and then start acting as if you've already accomplished it. And believe it or not, very quickly you will have. It's that simple, really.
It's that simple. And Cindy?
Visualize your perfect day. Start at the beginning and go through it and do it every day. And start to see if things change.
And the key point there is do it every day. Ladies, I'd like to thank you very, very much for attending today and really contributing in a massive way. I really appreciate it. It's been good content for all of our viewers. Next week is the final part 4 of the series, and what we'll be talking about next week is the adrenaline hit that gets everyone going. One step forward gets you started. So we're talking about the action steps and how we just get over that hurdle, because we know, and I know with all of my work that I do with my clients, it's just getting that first step happening, getting it happening and getting it going, and then keeping it going. That'll be next week, same time. Thank you very, very much. I'm Stuart Harris from Breakout Blueprints, and we're closing out now.